Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Transpicuous News on a very, very windy Sunday. At least it is over here in Malta. It is July 2nd. I know you guys are all bored of me saying this over and over again, but I just get like, what the fuck? I just can't believe like it's fucking July already. Got a mosquito running around trying to bite me right now. So strange things are afoot at the Circle K. And there's been some more strange little bits and pieces coming out. I published an article. We're going to jump right into the strangeness that kind of came up for me this week. So we have the UnFuckers group on Facebook. And there was a post that Lisa Harrison put into the UnFuckers group back in December 18th. And she put a big long post in going like, holy shit. And the next day was the One People's Roundtable show. So we actually talked about it on the One People show. And it was one of those posts that just went like ridiculous and went on for days. And there was some bizarreness that happened with the post in the fact that some people could only see, like, at the bottom of Facebook, they'll say, like, there's how many comments there are on the post. They'll say, there's 57 comments or whatever. So some people were seeing it was saying, like, 250, 260 comments. But other people were seeing that theirs was saying there's 800 comments, over 1,000 comments. And a few people even posted screenshots into the group saying, no, like my fucking Facebook is telling me there's over 800 comments. And here's the screenshot that shows that. So you don't think anything of it at the time. And then sometime in May, this post reappeared. Now, you know that if a post comes back, if, for example, any post, no matter how old it is, if someone puts a comment on it, it bumps it right back to the top of the group. And everyone sees it again. And his post reappeared in the middle of May. And everyone was like, what the hell? How did that even come up? And I mean, if anyone has actually done anything on Facebook, you know that if you're in a really active group, scrolling back to comments, like in the UnFuckers room, scrolling back on comments that are 2 weeks old is sometimes virtually impossible. Scrolling back to a comment or even searching for a comment that's from like 6 months ago, it is almost completely impossible. So it reappeared. And a whole bunch of conversation went on, like, how the hell did this come back up again? Oh, this is really, really interesting timing, et cetera, et cetera. And then it just disappeared again. And then yesterday, was it yesterday? Somebody help me, was it yesterday? Yesterday, I'm pretty sure, all of a sudden it reappears again. Boom. Now, here's the thing. The interesting part is, for example, when it reappeared in May, people were getting notifications from Facebook that Lisa M. Harrison had just made a post in the UnFuckers room. And they went to go read it and realized it was a post from December. So this time, it was discovered by a friend of mine who's not very active in the UnFuckers group. And he basically came in and was like, oh, what the fuck is this? Like, this is from December 2016. And everyone kind of went, how is this post appearing again? And I thought to myself, okay, there's a reason. I better go like read. It was a very long post, so I was like, not just glance and go, oh, this is an old one. Actually read the entire thing. And lo and behold, the post is all about time loops, time jumps, time loops. And basically, back in December, Lisa had gotten a message from someone out of the blue, someone she didn't even know, someone who didn't even know her. And I'm going to read you the message that she'd received. Bear with me a second. So this is the message that she received. She says, okay, the person says, okay, get ready to be weirded the fuck out because I honestly was, and I'm still confused as to what's going on. So at 7:30 p.m. tonight, I went and laid down to go to sleep, except that it didn't feel like I went to sleep. And instead, I jumped forward 15 days. At this point, I was told by someone I had never met before that Lisa M. Harrison would explain everything. I've never heard or seen your name. I've never looked into anything that you cover on your webpage. Now, this is super weird because I watched one video in particular, which came up at the top of a Google search for your name at the time, which covered a time shift where everyone was thinking it was 2017. Now, this is a show that Lisa and I did back in January of 2015, when all of a sudden we all kind of went, whoa, what the fuck just happened? Why does it feel like it's 2017 now? So we know exactly what show it was he was talking about. And the fact that that's the first thing that came up for him when he did a Google search. Interesting. Now, at this point, it gets really weird. So go ahead 15 days and get told you would explain everything, except you have somehow become aware of time loops and how to move between them. You then showed me and others how to move through these time loops. The group, minus you, starts shifting through time loops together. I made a decision to send someone back through to a previous date in the time loop we were in and to reset it. This happens quite a few times over nearly 2 years real time, except we don't go past June 26, 2017, ever. At some point, one of us stuffed up somewhere and started shortening the time between the loop resets. And on June 27th, 2017, I get stuck in a 1-minute loop at 5:23 p.m. Someone comes into the loop and they tell me they need to go back and reset the loop before anything even happens. At this point, I jump out of bed and grab my phone and look at the time, and it is 7:32 p.m., Thursday, the 15th of December, 2016. 2 minutes after the original 15-day jump, after what felt like more than 2 years. So this is the message that Lisa received from this guy. So immediately as I'm reading this again yesterday, I'm jumping out. The date that comes up is June 26th and June 27th, 2017, which was last week. And hold on, let's go look at June. Yeah, it was last Monday and last Tuesday. And Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, over to Wednesday, we were talking, I was talking especially, but we were really heavily talking about time loops. And why does it feel like we're somehow, something is going on that is bringing 2013 back up again? Which if you've watched the UnFucker discussion, I had Randy Moggins on. We dug into this last Wednesday really quite heavily. Okay, now the interesting thing is, this post of Lisa goes on, and there's another message from one of our UnFuckers who says, the same day that Lisa had this experience, he posted, I had a very bizarre dream last night. They were showing me how to patch 2 timelines together. It was like they froze everything in the now time and then went through and then went through a kind of library of alternate timelines in the future. And you had to get the new future one to match up at some point exactly with the old one. Kind of like fast forwarding or reversing on a videotape till the pictures completely match up. Then when the two are matched, you can kind of glue and seal the new timeline in place. Then basically unfreeze everything or press play and you can carry on in the newly added timeline, none the wiser. So yeah, needless to say, with the dates coming up, it was very interesting. Let's just put it that way. It was very, very interesting. Then there was another article that I posted with the Wednesday show, the UnFucker discussion on Wednesday. I posted an article, and I discussed the article during the discussion with Randy Moggins. And the article was originally written in 2014. And again, it's talking basically about time loops in 2013 and how time is, there's something happened in 2013 to create a loop. And what's really, really interesting is that in the article, hold on, just give me a second. Let me see if I can find it now. Ha, 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 ha. Oh, where is it? Have I lost it? Basically, apparently I have lost it now. I can't find the actual article. And I thought I'd posted it in with this article. It mentions, specifically mentions the date of June 26th, 27th of 2017. And the entire article, again, is about time loops. And like I said, it's a very, very long article. It's a little bit new agey, airy, fairy, but some of the information in it is pretty spot on. Very, very interesting stuff. So we're going through this, and it just seems that each of these pieces, and then someone brought out something else, that another piece came forward and said, oh, but then this happened that time, and this also talked about June 26th, 27th, 2017, specifically June 26th, 27th of 2017, as having something was going to, because it was an article written prior to that, was going to happen at that time. Oh, I just thought of something. What was the, guys, maybe you can help me out here. We talked about this when I had Jordan Sather on, and then we talked about it again in another show. It was an article about the Mayan calendar and about how December 21st was not the date everyone should have been looking at, and that there was a date in 2017, and it was like everything past that time was when there was going to be these massive changeovers. It was like the middle of 2017. I can't remember now. It was May or June. I'm not sure. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff. Now, as I talked with Randy on Wednesday, we got into the whole thing about CERN. Now, again, when you start looking at some of the dates, some of the coincidences of certain things playing out, that you just kind of sit there and you got to question, like, oh, okay, wait. This can't just be coincident. It can't just be coincidental that all these different things are all happening. Hold on. Was it 2014? I thought it was more, I think it was spring of 2015 when we had Lily Earth and Gauze on. I'm pretty sure it was early spring 2015. I'm not sure. Anyways, so we're looking at all these different pieces. And like I said, we're not talking about there being an actual, all of a sudden we're back in 2013 now. That's not the point of this at all. But there feels like there have been these massive shifts. You going for a walk? You can go for a walk. Go for a walk. Go. Silly dog. There have been these really, really massive shifts that have been happening. Now, last week, almost everyone I know was knocked on their ass for several days. And I don't mean that, oh, I'm kind of tired. I mean, knocked on their ass, exhausted, dizzy, falling over, almost incapable of speech at moments. But you're literally, it's like your brain is non-functioning. And sorry, guys, the chat room's distracting me. They got so much stuff going on in there right now. Yeah, all this stuff kind of comes up. There are pieces playing out. And I've been looking at various different scenarios. We had quite a conversation this morning. Actually, a gang of us got together early this morning, my time, and kind of talked out a bunch of stuff. what people were seeing. Now, the other interesting piece was yesterday. Was it yesterday? The day before? Oh, fuck, I hate that. I can't even keep my dates straight. Yesterday or the day before, I laid down for a few minutes. Went to go to bed that night, and I laid down, and the very moment I closed my eyes, I immediately went to another place, and I could see stuff going on. And the biggest part of it was that I was sitting looking forward, and there was an opening on one side, and there was an opening on the other side. And I sat there contemplating the two openings, and I can't tell you anything, that I can't remember the specifics. There was nothing that I could actually pinpoint except that looking at these two openings, to the point that I actually thought that I was sitting outside on my terrace, and we have like one of those gazebos that has the meshing, like the mosquito meshing all the way around it, and the openings are on either side. Except that my gazebo is about 4 meters across, and this was like literally only this far apart on either side of me. And then all of a sudden you kind of realize and go, wait a second, you've gone to bed. You only just laid down to go to sleep. Like you literally just got into bed. You're not sitting outside. And I kind of laid there with my eyes closed going, because I could still clearly see everything behind my eyes. And you do that where you crack one eye open and you look around to like make sure you're still awake. Am I awake? And I look and I can see like the hallway light. I'm like, okay, no, I'm wide awake. But when I close my eyes, I can still see these two openings. And then there was a blinding flash of green light over here on the left. And I sat up and was like, what the hell was that? And I got up and I went to the bathroom. And I realized I had like a complete adrenaline rush going on. Do you know what I mean? Like you can feel it like in your stomach, this like adrenaline. I was pumped. And it took me forever to get to sleep. As a matter of fact, I was up most of the night after that. Could not frickin' sleep. And yesterday was the first day that I actually felt good. Like I actually had like energy. Even considering how swelteringly hot it was here, I still felt like really good and energized, and I was getting stuff done. And there were several other people in the UnFuckers group who also were seeing some really strange things happen. And it's really interesting, when we were chatting this morning, I said, I wondered afterwards, the next morning when I thought about these two openings, there was a moment of, I could almost feel this, like, do I go or do I go back? Do I go or do I go back? And apparently I chose to go back. That's the only thing I can figure out. So yeah, if you guys want to, if anyone wants to come on and talk about anything on this subject before we get into other kind of stuff, because I know there was a bunch of stuff bunch of people who had some rather crazy shit go on in the last week as well. Like time just completely missing. There was a lot of us who went through literally losing hours and hours of time in a day like that for no reason that you could figure out. Really, Katie? Okay, it's a kid's book? Okay, hold on, guys. I got to fire this up, and we got to take a look at this. I got to take a look at this. Give me a quick second, guys. Apparently, this is a book on CERN's website. And it does not want to load. Why does it not want to load? Okay, kill that. I'm going to try and load it with Chrome and see if it'll load that way. Come on, just load. I want to see this book. I don't know, guys. Apparently, I have really fucked into it. It will not load. It's not loading. Okay, I'm going to leave it there for a second. We'll see if I'll try and come back to it. And we'll see if it actually loads. So yeah, does any of you guys, Brianna, do you want to come out and
actually
hand raised?
yeah, it's a question.
Yeah.
Just before the show, I was trying to kill those 20 minutes. It was an odd time. Anyway, so I sort of half-heartedly listened to an astrology thing. She's very interesting. But anyway, she was talking about looping times, and seems the subject is going around everywhere. Because she does like Ayurvedic and Gnostic astrology. And she uses a lot of symbols and things. And here she was, it's the first time I've been following her work. She was talking about looping time loop.
Oh, why?
I'll send the link. I'll actually post the link tomorrow in the UU room, because it's, if there's a text, and the text isn't that long, where she explains Sunday, and on the, I'll write it. You know, she recorded like a 20-something minutes voice thing where she talks about time loops also, which is the first time. I've been following this woman since 2013, off and on. But I actually, that was first thing. Second thing, I had a question, because when she was talking about it, she looked back certain current events to certain times, and she went further than we did. But my question was, she stated August 28th, the month of August 2008, sorry, as being the first time CERN fired and collided protons or something. And as really, was that not supposed to be later?
I thought they started running the tests in 2009. I thought the first tests were run in 2009. I could be wrong though. And let's face it, we are talking about CERN, and CERN itself is a Mandela effect. So
exactly. Yeah, so possibly, but it's interesting, and I'll post the link, the whole link, or a little webpage tomorrow morning.
Cool.
Time, Europe morning. Sorry, guys.
European morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing all of a sudden, a lot of people are talking about time loops. 2013 keeps coming up, and of course, December 21st, 2012 keeps coming up. And like I said, unfortunately, we have a fucked up language that doesn't really accurately express certain ideas. So I'm using the term time loop just because, again, it's something that most people would be able to identify with and kind of at least get the relative feeling of what I'm talking about. But in fact, I'm not actually, like I said, I'm not saying that time has done this huge loop and come all the way back, and like that we're back in 2013. That's not what I'm saying at all. But there are things playing out. And it's really, really interesting. I had a conversation with Nick, with my husband. Started off talking about a new piece of technology called augmented reality. And I'm going to actually put something together specifically on this topic, because it's like the video I watched, the kind of introductory video I watched about this company is kind of along the lines of that famous D-Wave TED Talks, where some of the shit that they say is just like, did he just say that? But basically, they're talking about holographic augmented reality. And it kind of sent Nick and I down the rabbit hole again, discussing, going back to the basic theory that has been put forward by a lot of people, that we live in a simulation, that this reality that we're in is a simulation. Basically, whether it is, whatever the purpose is, whether it's a gaming simulation, it's entertainment, it's a historical reproduction of a certain era in time that they wanted to study, for whatever reason, doesn't really matter. But when you look at it, one of the things that we talked about was anything that is, let's say, computer-based, and we're using the word computer very loosely here, obviously, but anything that's computer-based, you see glitches come up. And the one thing I said was, if it's some kind of a holographic, augmented reality simulation that we're all plugged into, and let's even say that it's somewhat user-controlled, i.e. that we are the ones writing the storyline type thing as we go along. Now, we talked about on Thursday the fact that there were many, many people who were saying there was going to be a major natural disaster happen in the United States in 2013. Massive, massive natural disaster, something that was going to kill probably millions of people. And I said to Nick, I said, so what if, right? This whole thing, like they got to put a fix in. Like this timeline here, the way this scenario is playing out is not going really well. Oh no, it's not going well. So they got to put a fix in. Kind of like, what do they call that in computer terms when you got to put fix a little glitch and you just put a little piece of extra code or whatever. They go into version 2.3. And they put
called a patch.
A patch. Thank you. That's the word, not a fix, a patch. Thanks, guys. All the computer people who are all correcting me. So they put a patch in. And maybe, like I said on Wednesday, maybe the patch was in the form of creating a new timeline, jumping us to a new timeline that took us out of the natural order or the way things were going in one place or another. And like I said, just hypothesizing here. And the analogy I gave on Wednesday was, if we can imagine the amount of energy that would be necessary to do something like this would be astronomical. And I used the analogy of like if you dropped a rock into a body of water and you'd have some massive initial splash, and then the ripples would go up and they spread out everywhere until they basically the energy just dissipates finally. And then we went out walking later on after the show on Wednesday. And we're watching an area of the seashore where we get very strange waves. Because of the way the reefs are underneath, we get cross waves. And I turned to Nick and I said, wait a second. What if you drop that rock in the body of water and it's not an open body of water? What if it's a contained body of water? Set in a contained space. Well, the ripples go out and then they hit the wall, and what do? They reflect back in again, and it will continue back and forth, rippling back and forth, and you'll have certain waves will be stronger than others, and other waves will be not as strong, and you will end up with a cross-hatching where you will get waves start crossing over, and either they will merge together or they actually cross and create like a nexus point, which is a scattering. And the interference patterns exactly, Carl. And all of a sudden I had this thought and went, is that what the Mandela effect is? If you just do one massive change, one major massive change, and the energy from that creates these ripples. Ripples through time. Time is a linear construct. Through time. Ripples through space. Oh, and the other thing I joked about was what the brand new theory that's just been proven in the last 2 years is, of course, gravitational waves is another one. And they talk about gravitational waves is in the exact same way of ripples moving across the universe. So I sat there and was like, is this more proof of, or could this be seen as a proof of that this is an artificial simulation, and that the ripples, as the changes have been dropped in, we're watching the ripple effect not only as they're going out, but as they're hitting a finite space and then coming back in again, and the energy just going back and forth. it was really, 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 really interesting. Then, yesterday, our very own Igor, he drops a bomb in the UnFuckers room about an interview that he'd just been watching. So, Igor, if you're there, did you get your homework done?
Yes, I've listened to a couple of videos from this guy again. It's like a summary, a brief summary. And I even tried to simultaneously translate and record. But his Russian is so Russian, it's like really difficult to translate him. It's like really, the syntax is very different.
Just give us the summary, because that was
just to give you a summary. Basically, what he says is the world was created on March the 1st, 1953. And he is perfectly aware how bizarre it sounds. And to make a long story short, he essentially says, of course, it may not be the case, and it probably is not the case, that planet Earth, or whatever plane it is created on March the 1st, 1953. But they started, apparently he talked, while working on his book called The Metaphysics of the Earth's Climate, he talked to scientists who worked in KGB in the Soviet days. And they basically, just before 1991, they analyzed Soviet and Russian history, and they used pendulum-based technology. And that technology, that equipment, basically indicated that the history is not as long as it is believed and portrayed in history books and all the sources they've been aware of. And independently, they came to a conclusion that the world started on March the 1st, 1953. And this scientist, this researcher, he basically suggests that possibly something happened on that day, and I would have to remind us that on March the 5th, 1953, Stalin died. And of course, it meant a huge change in the entire paradigm, or more. It's just the whole world. I mean, in the perception of a person living here, it was the whole world transformed. The world ended for people. People just, perceived it as the end of the world, literally. Yeah. So something happened there, and essentially what he's saying, it's, of course, we don't know how to put it in conventional terms, but what if something happened that rewrote? It's like a reset. Essentially, he's alluding to a reset of some sort, which changed everything, and started a new world, basically.
Well, one of the things I said was, what Igor and I talked about this earlier, was the fact of, could it be that them doing their measurements, doing all this, their research, everything that they did, they came up with 1953, March 1st, 1953, because that's when their timeline started, right? Because we talk about the whole multiple branch points, where a timeline could start off, maybe that's the year that their timeline specifically broke off and started there. Now, before we go any further, so March 1st, 1953, Stalin had his stroke, and he died March 5th. It's also the year that Queen Elizabeth II was coronated. It's also the year that Eisenhower became president. It's also the year where the commission that is the precursor to the EU was formed. It's also the year, what was the other one? There was another major one there. And Mercedes, you were going through these with me. Do you remember there was one other one that was just like, the Salk polio vaccine was released in March of 1953. Yeah, like we're talking, there was some events that were the kind of things that reshaped our history as far as putting new people in power, starting new, that was it. In March of 1953 was the year that the CIA also overthrew the leadership of Iran. And the CIA went through and like literally changed the history of the Middle East with toppling the government of Iran. It was also the year that that was it in the US, the same year was the year that Eisenhower ratified whatever the formation of the group that was the original group that started the Cold War. Basically, the initial declaration of the Cold War was in 1953. Oh, and the first testing of the hydrogen bomb was also in 1953. So we're talking about some seriously fucking interesting shit that happened. Now, was there anything more that came up with that? Like when he was discussing, did he get into any of, I want to say like technology of like, what did they base their...
I haven't found anything more on the actual technology. He doesn't go deep enough into that. He basically says it's pendulum based, and he doesn't go any further. But he also gives certain indications of like strangenesses when he was basically educated in missile technology, missile construction technology. And he's been noticing that certain things didn't make sense in terms of he would have lectures throughout the course on hot fuel missiles, and they were not patented at that time, although supposedly I'm not very technical, so I will not go into that. But essentially, he finds a lot of indications that everything is happening as we go, and there is no past the way it's presented.
Okay, so I want to lay this down too, right? Going back into the analogy that I was talking about just before I started you and I into this conversation. Someone asked the question, Jailing asked the question, what if people who were born before 1953? And we got a few of them right here with us. If it literally is simply like straight above the board, the construct, this simulation started in 1953, they're not going to start everyone off as newborns, are they? They're going to, if you're going to be plugged in, you're going to be plugged in with there'll be a whole history. When you start a video game, you don't start with a blank canvas and there's just fucking nothing there. There's a pre-story. You've got the whole story of what you're going into and what your personality is, and you've got a whole genre that's already pre-planned out. If it's a simulation, then it would make sense that, yeah, like literally you could plug in the people into play the game or run the simulation. Some of them are going to be 100. Some of them are going to be 10. Some are going to be 1. Some are going to be 50. Because otherwise it wouldn't be realistic, would it? It wouldn't be realistic if all of a sudden everyone comes in and they're all the same age when they start off. And this is just it. I mean, it could be that literally this guy's work was done on a different timeline. If we're talking about the collapsing of all these timelines coming together, and we've hypothesized this for a couple of years now, that that's what the Mandela effect is these timelines are coming in and they're merging and collapsing together. It could be literally that if the measurements were taken on his timeline and his timeline was fractured out from what was his original in 1953. Maybe, seeing as he's Russian, that fracture was Stalin having the stroke on March 1st of 1953. And maybe that was how it was planned. Everyone knows that Stalin was murdered. It's not really even remotely questionable in this day and age. was that the episode that fractured that timeline, was the poisoning of Stalin and wiping him out and getting him off the world stage.
That sounds very plausible.
Right? The shit with like Queen Elizabeth. Did people know the history of when she became queen? No one expected her dad to die. It was a rather sudden thing. To my memory, could someone from the UK tell me if I'm off base on this one? But it was not. All I can remember is my grandma telling me, because my grandma's British, that it was a very sudden. She remembers it was a very sudden thing. Like all of a sudden, next thing you know, he was dead and she was being coronated. Yeah. Sudden death again. So if you've got to get the right person on the throne, then all of a sudden you have these changes happen. Is that the split of the timeline? Is that the instant that they had to get certain people in power? Look at what happened with Eisenhower. I mean, holy shit, the man was in power until 1961. And that's the Cold War, right frickin' there. That's the kind of the shit that we're reliving right now. Oh, look at that. Looping back, we're back to the Cold War again. Oh, yeah, and CERN was started in 1954. September of 1954. So, yeah, and that didn't happen in my reality. Like in my reality, CERN certainly did not fucking start in 1954. Not, but that's what, if you go look it up right now, CERN started in, not the LHC, obviously, not the Large Hadron Collider, but CERN itself was built and started in 1954. So, I don't know. There's these, as I said before, we're pulling the threads, and it's like we're unraveling this tapestry. The conversation we had this morning with a small group of us, all of us over here in Europe who could get up at that time, it's been really awesome that we now have this ability called the internet to be able to reach out and make friends with Igor over there in Russia, with Brianna, who's over there in Romania, and they're bringing to the table these pieces of history that we from the West, like, we don't know these pieces of history. There's all kinds of shit that was happening that we have no fucking clue about, because it's not written in our history books. Our media, our schools do not educate us on this shit. And I mean, and we've talked about this. We've talked about the things like fucking on mainstream television programs in Russia talking about Hitler and the Nazis going to Antarctica. It's mainstream over there. Like, yeah, the Nazis went to fucking Antarctica. Boom. There you go. Yeah, you try and say that over in America or Canada, and they'd laugh you right to it. Don't be ridiculous. Oh, that's so fucking crazy. So yeah, we have this incredible ability now to be able to start pulling the threads apart. And for things like for Igor to find a Russian interview that I certainly couldn't have watched, most anyone here couldn't have watched, and yet bring these pieces to the table, and we all of a sudden start to get a very, very different picture of what our reality is like and how it started. Hello, Peter, darling. Peter he's like, I didn't do that.
Danny, could I also add something
Yeah,
in relation to this scientist and researcher Tuniaev who introduced this date of March 1st, 1953. He also, part of his story is that US never had nuclear weapons, as we talked about today.
Yes. Okay, go into that, because again, this is another whole piece that we've been arguing about and debating for fucking years, right?
Essentially, he is suggesting that US never really had nuclear weapons, and it's basically a show in which Soviet Union was part, just like space exploration and landing on the moon. It's like basically USSR and US. It's USSA, you know, and it's like there are two football teams who play against each other, but they have the same owner, essentially, and the same set of rules, the same script,
Yeah.
And people within this script, within the show, without realizing there is a script, like a meta script written for them, with premises and impulses, so to speak, and unpredictability. And there is a term in Russian called global predictor, which is like an entity behind all this, which is basically sends some kind of impulse, a thought, and then it branches out, in an organic, so to speak, natural, free, spontaneous way, because that's just the algorithm, so to speak, of actions and predictability, or you name it. And so there is a lot there. I haven't studied it all, but essentially, it's an imitation for whatever reason. An imitation, whatever it is done, whether it's for extraction of psychic energy and feeding whatever and whoever are there. What all this drama is for, we can talk about it. But essentially, this drama has two actors at least, or had two actors, Soviet Union and US. And for whatever reason, this nuclear threat was essential for this whole drama, which was ultimately a game. And another point which indicates, like I remember reading a very reliable, it resonated as a reliable resource. Apparently in 1970s, at the peak of the Cold War, there was cooperation on the CIA and the KGB level, like on the top level. They had like one of them has these memoirs that he went to. Essentially, it was internship in 1970s on a high KGB CIA level.
But this has always been the way it is. I mean, I fucking took the piss out of this 2 years ago when Obama was slamming Russia with sanctions. No, all these sanctions, we're going to put all these sanctions in place, Oh, but we need your rockets because we need to launch some astronauts to the ISS. So we're just going to send them over to you guys in Russia, and then you guys can just send them off into space. And I was like, wait a second. So where are these sanctions? Now you need Russia to send your astronauts to space. So now you're going to play with the Russians. It was the same thing when Russia announced that they were going to put their own SWIFT banking system into place. And I was like, oh, okay, well, let's see what they do. This was 2014. And then they announced, it's being run by MasterCard. I'm like, really? MasterCard's an American corporation. So wait, an American corporation is setting up the interbank transfer system in Russia, and they're calling that the new Russian SWIFT system? And where are the sanctions? Because they've always played together. Like these guys, all of them. And if you go and you look at the historical pictures, if you go and start crawling through historical pictures, and you will see Nixon's guys sitting down with Chairman Mao and in China, and they're all sitting at the same big boy tables, and they're all doing the deals because that's what they're told to do. This is why I've always kind of been like, when everyone tries to play the whole, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, like you said, it's the same guy owns the same two soccer teams.
Just to add another point, which is pre-1953, this very same researcher and scientist, he also said there are a lot of strange episodes in pre-1953 history, the way it's conveyed, because for what we know, there are signs, there are indications that Hitler and Stalin regimes who were supposedly in war, USSR and Germany, Nazi Germany, in war with each other. At the same time, there are indications there was cooperation during that war.
Yep.
Like in Arctics and to the extent of components in Russian tanks produced in Germany. What's that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, we talked about this on the One People show back in early 2016 when we were all bringing up the whole Hitler question. and we were going really deep on this, and it became very apparent when you really started dissecting some of the stuff that it looked like Hitler and Stalin were actually working together. And I hypothesized then that could it be that the two of them both knew that their governments were completely controlled by the Zionists, and they were working together to get rid of the Zionists from within the governments, from within the banking on both sides.
And Russian military as well. I mean, Stalin basically had a purge of generals before 1941, before Hitler invaded.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, interesting. We came across, when we were doing the research, we came across a quote by Mussolini, who is, of course, the dictator in Italy, who was buddy-buddy with Hitler, where apparently Hitler and Mussolini were very close, and that Hitler looked to Mussolini as almost like a mentor. And that Mussolini told Hitler not to make a move until, I think it was 1942 or 1941. And basically, something pushed it. Something pushed Hitler ahead, and he had to make the first act of war, whatever, like, so the invading of Poland ended up happening 2 years before it was supposed to have. And we hypothesized then, was it because he knew they needed another 2 years to clear out the military, to clean out all the spies, all the people in the high up ranks, and yet they were pushed into it. Something happened to trigger it 2 years early, and neither Hitler nor Stalin had the ability yet to clear out the ranks of the high-ranking Zionists, and that is why both of them, well, like I said, Stalin was a figurehead after the war, and from the last year of World War II, you didn't really see anything. It was always his generals that did everything. And from that point on, like, he kind of was just a figurehead. He didn't really do much. And then all of a sudden, 1953, he has a sudden stroke, and he's out of the picture. So yeah, I mean, I got told by someone that I know whose father was a very high-ranking KGB, and he was a radio operator, and that he was there and listened to Hitler and Stalin talking and making plans together.
And what year, what would it be, Danny?
Either early, the very earliest parts of the war, or just prior to, but very, very early in the war.
Because obviously from 1931, when the Second World War started, there were still 2 years until the invasion into USSR in 41. So,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know when. All I knew is that, all this person knew was that it happened very early, and that that her father was the radio operator who was there and listening to Hitler and Stalin working together. So there's big fucking questions. This is one thing we've learned on this fucking journey. Everything about history, if you don't remember it yourself, yeah, it's pretty much completely open season on dissecting it and throwing it out the window. Yeah, well, hey, Sony, you just mentioned Hydra, right? Of course, that's the Marvel cartoons. Always talks about Hydra, the Hail Hydra. And I mean, it's absolutely accurate, isn't it? I mean, I can remember the first one when Captain America, the Winter Soldier came out. We saw that, and literally my husband and I would jaw on the floor going like, holy fuck, like I can't believe they were allowed to even release this movie, because there's so much truth in it. Like, it's so astounding how much they released about how Hydra was hidden within the highest ranks of the American government and the American military. And it's like, yeah, that's pretty much exactly what happened. So yeah, so there are a lot of questions. There are a lot of fucking questions. I don't know. All I can say for a fact is that weird fucking shit is happening. Like, seriously, weird fucking shit is happening all the time. And I don't know. It's just, I would love to say that we have an absolute answer. It was interesting. We had this conversation we were all chatting earlier today. And I try to remain pretty neutral. Try to remain as the observer on a lot of stuff. And I don't throw shit out because I don't believe it or because I don't want to believe it. So I look at not just the positive things, I also look at the very negative things. I look at things like, okay, well, what could the equivalent be technologically wise? We're talking about things like, for example, the physical symptoms that we're all going through, this exhaustion that hit everybody. This last month especially was completely and utterly exhausting. And it wasn't just, okay, I got some wild split screen thing going on there. What the heck just happened? Hold on, guys. There we go. I think it's fixed. Okay. When you've got, I look at things like I said, all this exhaustion, everyone for this last month. It doesn't matter if you were in a heat wave or you were freezing cold. It doesn't matter if it was summer or winter, depending on what hemisphere you're in. Everyone across the board was feeling this incredible exhaustion and mental numbness. Now, I mean, Jim Stone put a really interesting article out. Mad Tom posted it in the RTS Earth wall yesterday, I think. Yeah, apparently I am splitting into different timelines, Jayling. That's what's happened. See that? I just split into 2 timelines. And now Joseph's splitting into 2 timelines because, Joseph, you've got 2 windows open. How the hell did you manage to do that? Too much weirdness, apparently. Someone's got their mic open. Andrea, you've got your mic open, hon? Okay. So one of the things that Jim Stone, if you don't know who Jim Stone is, he's an alternative media reporter, completely independent. He tends to be really hardcore on government fraud and government conspiracy stuff, and he goes down a lot of rabbit holes that are kind of for a lot of people. He doesn't have, let's just say some of his stuff gets rather one-sided, but he does have some pretty interesting stuff that he pulls out, and he put out something, I think in the last day or two, talking about a couple of years ago, it was announced by the Pentagon that they were designing a vaccine to combat religious extremism, right? And it was, to make people basically be less, basically turn people into sheep, that they would be more docile, they wouldn't be all high and tightly bound up into this whole religious stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And it was supposed to, of course, to be used as a weapon against them. It's always against them. Not going to use it on their own people. But he brought up the really good point of, like, you have all these people all over the world, like he was in Mexico, other people all over the States, Canada, et cetera, and they're completely exhausted. And he said it was all he could do just to upkeep his website for the month. He said everything, because you get to the point where I don't care. I just don't care. I'm too tired. I can't think straight. I just can't be bothered. And a lot of the people felt that way this month. I know. I tried stuff that I was trying to work on RTS Earth, and I'd open it up and start working on shit and have to close it down. Just go, I can't do this. I can't do this right now. Like, my brain is just, I can't. I just can't. So, I mean, yeah, I always have to look at both sides and kind of take the information in and say there's different theories out there. And I don't ever kind of stick to just one theory, because the fact of the matter is we don't fucking know. We really, really don't fucking know. Do I believe that that's what has been causing all this ridiculous mind wipe exhaustion bullshit that was especially for this last month? No, I don't. I don't really believe it. No, but it is an option that I have to look at, and things like, you know, I have to always look at things like HARP and the Gwen Towers and the fucking ELFs and the ULFs and CERN and all these things, because it is out there. It is out there. It is a factor. Brianna, do you still have your hand up, or is this from before? I don't know.
No, it's new. I again wanted to put a question. Listening to what you recapped about everybody being exhausted, and also a big one is that the second one, because exhaustion has come and gone in waves. We all had them even several months ago. It got better, and now it's getting really bad again. But that can't be bothered. Like, you start something that you have to do that you usually would actually enjoy doing, and you're looking at it like, can't be bothered. And that seems to be very frequent. And that's kind of new. Like, bored, not bothered. And I wanted to put this out there for everybody participating and watching. Has any of you, I actually can't be bothered. I used to watch at least 20 minutes of news every day. At least, that's it. Not more, that's my 20 minutes. I fucking can't be bothered. It bores me. But besides that, have any other people that I know a lot of you do follow more or less, you know, let's call them world events, smaller, or your local events or whatever. Yeah. Do you have a feeling that in the past, specifically in the past, like, I don't know, 2 weeks maybe or so, shit keeps repeating? It's the same storylines over and over again. Another tower just burned in London, for instance, like today or yesterday, I forgot. Things like that. Yeah. The so-called events, you have a breaking news. I'm looking at it like, no, wait.
Did you see this? Didn't that just happen last week?
Exactly. Yeah, so just leaving the question open for everybody. It seems to be a big one. Can't be bothered, shit repeating.
And that's interesting because, for example, it was the breaking news Grenfell Tower and that tragedy. And then there was the breaking news of another fire. And that was last week in London. Somewhere in London, there was another building on fire.
Sorry, my power is going on and off. If I drop off, we're having like whatever they call it.
Major thunder and lightning over there, yeah.
Lights just went off and my light just went off and on. I'm surprised the computer didn't stop. So if I drop off, that's it. Don't worry, guys. Okay. I didn't jump anywhere. Power.
So yeah, so like there was another fire in another building last week, and now again today there was another fire in London today. Okay, and you can say, okay, big city, now everyone's hyper focused on fires on buildings. Yeah, okay, absolutely. But when it makes the breaking news headlines again, and then the next week, and then the next week, and it's like the terrorist attacks. I don't know. Granted, I kind of weird this way where I go from like being obsessive about watching the news to being like completely just so disinterested. I've gotten to the point in the last month, especially it feels this last month and a half, I just can't be arsed. Like, it's another terrorist attack, don't care. There was a bomb scare and I don't care. Oh, someone gunshot wounds in I don't care. I not even enough to even go look and see the bare details of it. I just don't fucking care. Don't care. It's like, it's just another false flag attack. I just don't care. It's just another one of this. I just don't fucking care. I just don't. And now that's also the disinterestedness. And Linda, you're right. Disinterested. But it's not, in this case, when it comes, for me, when I look at stuff, especially the false flag stuff and the stuff that's going on, the financial and the stuff that's going on politically, like now we're looking at, now there's another warning that something's going to happen in Syria and all this kind of stuff. It's like I've seen it so many times now that you just can't maintain any level of brain interaction to even take in the information. It's like another fucking bomb went off. I just don't, like, it's like literally my brain just goes, I just don't care. It's just happened so many times now that it's just, yeah, you got it, perfect word, disconnect. Completely fucking disconnected from it. I cannot make myself about twice a week right now, about twice a week, I'll go through RT News and I'll go through Zero Hedge. And they're the only two I really hit anymore. Because I do have a Tom. Tom's always posting stuff, so I get like a great broad spectrum, little bits of the news that's coming and going. But it just seems to be a complete repeat. Everything's on repeat. It's on a repeat. And it's like there's no creativity anymore. There's nothing new happening anymore. It's just a fucking repeat. Every single thing. This movie star is divorcing that movie star. Repeat. You know, and it's like, it's, you know, I don't know. And I mean, the disinterested thing, yeah. I mean, I had a hard time this week, or this last month, trying to keep things going, trying to work on RTS. Sorry, sorry guys, just give me a second. I've got trying to set up my online shop for Guy's Gardens, which we're ready to launch again for everyone. Guy's Gardens going to be back. And stuff that normally I would have completely outdone, ready to go in a week, it's taken me a month. And I'm still, I can't pull it together. So yeah. And I sit there and go, okay, is that, on one hand, is that because deep down inside, you know, it's a waste of fucking time? I.e., like, this is the end, it's all over, all this bullshit, we're going to just walk out of this fucking simulation and go, thank God, no, give me a coffee. Or is it the flip side of that? And we talked about it when we did the episode, and Callahan and I talked about the chemtrails. And you go, lithium. We know they're spraying this with fucking lithium. What does lithium do? It fucking deadens your emotions. It's the I don't want it, I just don't fucking care drug. That's what lithium is. The I just don't fucking care drug. So I have to look at both sides of it. For me, I have to look at both sides of it. Rand, you're absolutely right. Maybe we are pushing our energy into creating the new and don't even realize it yet. Absolutely. And I've said that this week, is that some of this exhaustion that we're feeling is because we are actually working so fucking hard on so many levels that we're literally physically exhausted. I mean, literally physically exhausted because of the amount of work that we're putting into it. I'm certainly not going to say that's not the case, because I tell you, there's fucking moments where I just sit there and you get up at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning, and by the time I've gotten to 9 o'clock and I'm going, oh, my coffee's empty, I just want to go back to bed. Can I go back to bed now? And that's been this whole fucking month. Yesterday is the first day in at least 2 weeks that I wasn't exhausted. And when you start counting the days that you're not exhausted versus the days that you are exhausted, it's easier to count the ones and keep track of the ones where you're not. I don't know, that kind of says something. Okay, Maury, that's really, really interesting. Do you want, Maury said, I will offer there's a feeling growing amongst many of us that there's something else calling us, and that the call is growing stronger and stronger. As a byproduct, the appeal of the 5 sense reality is fading massively, even as we are still encased in it. Abso-fucking-lutely. Absolutely. I have talked to multiple people now, and I'm not just talking people who are awake. I'm talking just out there who are like, I just don't want to eat. I just can't be bothered. Nothing tastes good. I'm not craving anything. It's like, oh, I'll have a, no. And I mean, it's not just that it's hot and it's summer and you're just kind of hot, so you just don't want to eat. I mean, literally, I've had days where I've sat here until 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm starving hungry. I can feel that I'm hungry. I really do need to go eat. And I just can't be bothered. I just can't be bothered because I know that there's nothing that I really want to eat. And you open the fridge and you look inside and go, there's nothing there that I want. Or you want to drink something. You know, like yesterday it was so freaking hot. Trying to find something to drink to quench your thirst. I was like, there's nothing. There is nothing that really does it for me. One day, Clive, one day I'll be over in Malta. Yes, yeah, Stacy, I wish. I've actually been joking about this. I have been living on so little food. Because I just can't be bothered eating. And what I am eating, because it's hot, I'm basically living on salads right now. Because I like a barbecue chicken breast cut up and then a big, massive frickin' salad with my homemade dressing and stuff. And I am not losing weight. I don't think I'm losing weight. Anyways, and all of us have kind of said the same thing. It's like, I don't know, maybe we've got some bizarre parasites that's making us stay that we can't lose weight, because it doesn't matter how much we work out or how much it just feels like, I don't know, but then you never see it on yourself either. I don't own a scale. I haven't owned a scale in fucking years, so I don't actually even know how much I weigh. So yeah, you know what, Deb, even lemon, and usually I'm a big one who drink in the summer. I drink just big glass of water with like a quarter of a lemon squeezed in, and I put like a quarter of a teaspoon or half a teaspoon of honey and a pinch of salt to keep my electrolytes and keep kind of the salts up for rehydration. I love it. It's my drink of choice. Meh. Oh, thank you, Robert. You're sweet. But my pants tell me something different. So I do. Yeah, I'm recording, girl. I bloody well should be. Yeah, it says I'm recording. Yeesh, I'll have another one of those. So yeah, guys, is there anything else you guys want to throw in here? I kind of really covered all the topics that I wanted to talk about tonight. So anything else want to... yeah, Maury, Dawn told me she was sending those to you. I was laughing. You and your Dr. Pepper addiction. Terrible. Terrible.
Let me tell you, cane sugar is way better than HFC. I can't get it now over here, but she can.
Do you know what's really, really funny about that? Is, and I don't know if it's the same in North America, but I've noticed in Europe, you cannot get candy anymore that isn't sugar-free. You cannot get gum anymore that isn't sugar-free. Everything has got fucking aspartame in it. Everything has got fucking aspartame in it. So it's like one of the things, you're going traveling, you're about to get on the plane, you want to eat some gum for everyone to chew while they're sitting there on the plane. Try and find fucking sugar-free gum. Gum with sugar in it, i.e. not sugar-free. Try and buy, when you like kids get a sore throat, and you just get, my grandmother used to give us caramels. When you had a sore throat, she'd give you a caramel because it kind of coats your throat, makes it feel a little bit soothed. And I actually found, I went out to a place, a little shop in town, and they had the little tins of butterscotch that my grandma used to buy me when I was a little girl. They're British, and I can't remember what they're called. Little gold tins, and they do butterscotches. And I went and read them and was like, oh my God, they're made with cane sugar. Oh my God, there's no artificial sweeteners in them. And I thought, no, not Werther's. They're, it's two names, two very British names. It's like something and something. It might be Callard and Bowser, I'm not sure, but they come in a gold tin with this big around, and they're powdered. They got the powdered sugar on the outside of them. Like, so they're like the butterscotches. They're like a hard candy butterscotch. And they do the treacle, and they do, I fucking love treacle, and I can't get any here right now. But yeah, and I was like, oh my God, and they have real sugar in them. How fucking retarded is that as a parent when you start cheering when you can find candy for your kids that have sugar in it? Well, I mean, Stacey, when we lived in Toronto, we lived really, really close to the Amish and the Mennonites. There was a lot of Mennonites in our community, and there was a farm we used to go to, and they did all the maple syrup candy. And it was all pure, made right there, and they did like maple syrup lollipops. And I always joked, I said, one day I'm going to have to get someone to go there and buy like a case lot of them for my kids, because it was the only candy they were allowed to have. It's the only in Canada I would let them have, like the maple syrup ones, but only the stuff that was made from, like you say, from the proper treacle or proper caramel. It's like homemade kind of thing. And I don't have a candy thermometer. I actually do make my own caramel, but if you don't have a candy thermometer, it's really difficult to get it just the right consistency. And the last couple of times, the temps didn't turn out very good, so I kind of stopped. Yeah.
Hey, Danny.
Hello, Dawn, darling.
Hey, I just want to say, you know, I am a candy monger. I'm real bad about it. I have my moments where I will put down a serious amount of candy, and I've had to back off because I've noticed in more ways than one. And I have to say, since I have been buying the soda with the pure cane sugar, I mean, I can have one of those in a day and I don't feel bad at all. It doesn't affect me bad at all. I don't notice anything. It's amazing how they price it out of the market so that nobody can afford it. It's hard to find.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I had to add my 2 cents in, because I mean, if y'all seen me with my candy, you'd be horrified.
Everyone knows I'm a chocoholic. Like, I fucking dark chocolate, and I haven't had any today, so I'm going to start jonesing out soon. But I've never liked candy. I've never had an interest like suckers and lollipops and hard candies and gummy bears and that kind of stuff. It's just like, can't. Yeah, Deb, I have some awesome candy recipes. I used to make hard candies that were a lemon hard candy that I used to make for my kids when they had sore throats. But unfortunately, you really do need a candy thermometer, because like you just get that 1 degree off and all of a sudden you have something that's just not edible. Oh, that sounds good, Deb. Oh, see, now we're all off talking about cooking, and now all of a sudden I've got a craving for something sweet. I may have to, before the end of the show, at the end of the show, and go have some ice cream. That's my addiction, especially in summertime. Chocolate ice cream. Yeah, it's really, really bad. It's a bad addiction that I have. Earl, you got your hand up. Do you want to say something, hon?
Hi, Danny.
Hi, Earl.
I've been doing research.
On what?
Well, you know how I've been talking about how things in the past seem to they come out earlier than what they should have been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The reality that I know.
Mm-hmm.
So I've gone back to 1890s. There are films from the 1890s.
I know I've seen like some really, really old films that show things like some of the earliest cars, and they're black and white, and they kind of move like this movies type thing, but I have no idea when those were actually from.
Yeah. Anyway, 1890s. But here's the odd thing. There's more people. these films show more people. And like there's some of them are like they still have horse and buggy and all that. But some are like where they have like double-decker bus type with a horse and like either two horses like pulling it. I'm like, how can two horses pull a double-decker thing?
Yeah, that does sound rather strange.
Yep, strange. And like and there's like hustle and bustle going on, and like almost like if it reminds me of a modern city. Thank you.
Okay,
I was thanking my mom.
Oh, okay. We've got some secondary noises that I couldn't hear you.
No, I was just my mom brought me dinner. The thing is, if you put those people in, say, with cell phones and that, it would be the same. Like, it's so. Plus, I've also looked at like, so I watched this other video from 1936, and it's talking about the roads and of that time. Okay. The American highway, from my memory, was really started and pretty much well worked on after World War II. Because, you know, with all the sprawl and that, they needed to, expand and all that. No, the highway was being majorly built before World War II. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, cars seem to come earlier. There were more cars in 1922, which there shouldn't have been. It's all weird, man. It's all weird. I'm like, plus I've seen World War I films that are in color.
What?
Yes, World War I. I've never seen films for World War I, let alone. I've only seen photos of World War I.
I've seen films of World War I, but not in color.
Yep.
Unless they, like Dawn said, unless they add the color after they actually paint the colors in, literally.
Yeah, I've seen that before, but it's usually never quite good. But it's about the detail of the film.
Yeah.
Because the film I remember like, film from 1900s, where I came from, were blurry and all that, and they weren't quite good. But you look at now, I've even seen films of the Titanic. And there were never any films of the Titanic. Like, actual, like, more of a good quality.
Not maybe good quality. I've seen films of the Titanic, of its maiden launch, when you're cracking the bottle against the hull and all that kind of crap.
Yeah, but it's the quality of the film. Like, even film from the 1890s looks good. I mean, not as good as in the 1900s. Like, I'm blown away. I'm just blown away by what I'm seeing. So my theory is that there were more people back then than what there are now. So something's happening with the amount of people in the construct. That's what I'm working on.
I'm not going to argue with you because literally, like I just said, if I didn't see it with my own eyes, it's highly questionable. Highly questionable.
And
When it comes to history, I just don't think I believe anything anymore.
exactly, because for me, it's with every shift, it's going to be going back even further. But the problem for me is, how come we haven't moved more ahead? Like, if it's going back further, shouldn't we be ahead further? But we're not.
No, I mean, like I said, we've argued about this. This has been an ongoing discussion for years saying, you know, where's the technology? Really, the reality of it is, where's the technology? It doesn't add up at this point.
Right.
I don't know what to tell you, dude. It's all fun. That's all I have to say.
I'm telling you, I'm ready to leave. I'm going to pack my bags and just say, okay.
I'm out of here.
Anyway, I'm going to mute myself. Oh, yeah, wait. That we posted, I know you probably talked about it earlier, because, well, I was asleep and you were probably talking about it. Yeah, I remember when that came out, that the reposting of what Lisa posted.
Yeah.
I saw that, I'm like, I know I've seen that. I know I even commented on that. So I'm like, that is odd.
Yep. Yep. Well, the thing that I found odd about the reposting, and it hit me after when we were talking about it, is, we're talking about it this morning actually, was the fact of so many people seeing so many different posts, i.e. some only seeing 200, some seeing 800, some seeing over 1,000. And I said, you know, was that some kind of strange time loop in that? And that perhaps some people, the numbers that were coming up on the screen for how many posts was the number of posts that were, let's say, now on it, or that literally was showing that there was some kind of a time loop going on in that moment, that they were seeing different amounts of posts. I don't know.
Yeah, I wasn't looking at how many posts. I was just looking at the post itself. I didn't pay attention to that other part, but yeah, it's so weird.
You won't hear an argument from me, dude. I'm telling you.
Yeah, anyway, I'm going to let someone else jump in.
Thanks, Earl.
Girl, oh, come on.
Girl,
Come on. It's bad enough I got that in school. Ugh.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Earl the girl. Earl the girl. Oh. And people wonder why. Oh, he has a different. Yeah, because of crap like that.
Yeah, well, yeah. Trust me, I hear you, dude. I was not the popular kid in school either. I had far too big a mouth, and it was flapping all the time.
Yeah, okay, for the eating thing, I'll maybe just do it. Okay, so for the eating thing, I don't like having lunch anymore. Lunch is just like, for me, like I'll have breakfast, I'll have dinner. Lunch, things I really don't care for.
Oh, I'm fucking missing breakfast and missing lunch half the time.
Anyway, yeah, done. I'm out.
Oh, God. Yeah, someone was commenting. The chat room's going off talking. They're exchanging recipes and talking about butter versus margarine and, you know, the thing. This whole bit about the trying to demonize coconut oil right now is hysterical. Hysterical. And it's on a level of the kind of shit that you see all the time across the board, and things like whether it's infant formula or certain like most medications, where they try and come up with a study to prove their point of view, and they conveniently ignore the 15, 20 other studies that completely go against their point of view. And that's what this whole thing about the demonizing of coconut oil right now is. It's ridiculous. It's basically them taking a piece of information and twisting the study around to come to a conclusion that they want it to have. Yeah, Igor, you and I are going to be talking about that too, you know. We got to talk about that.
Hey, Danny, I was going to type something, but I can speak it faster. It's all my fault about this coconut oil.
Why?
You know,
Why?
that you're talking. Yeah, it's all my fault. The reason is I never even knew about that stuff until Peter Eugene showed up. It's all your fault anyway. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't even known about them. But as it turns out, you know the story there. But the point is, he turned me on to that stuff. And as soon as I got going on it, all this shit come out about how bad it is. So just blame me. It's my fault.
I blame you. But like you said, I can't blame you without blaming me because I was the one who hooked you and Peter Eugene up. So my camera's gone all out of focus. Why is my camera out of focus? Oh, there we go. That was bizarre. Yeah, it's all my fault, but it's all your fault. I'm blaming you, Maury. Actually, Jay, you can turn yourself orange by eating too many carrots. I have proven it. Maybe that's what Donald Trump's problem is. Maybe he eats too many carrots. Maybe he just loves carrots and the only thing he does is eat orange vegetables. But no, that actual, not die. I don't know of anyone who's actually eaten so many carrots they turned orange and died. But yes, if you eat too many carrots, the beta carotene will start coming through your skin and you will literally start to turn orange. Someone put a post in, I don't know where it was, way farther up there when you guys were going off and talking about like the aspartame and all the rest of it. Don't ever give your kids Flintstone vitamins. And they're toxic. I mean, they are literally toxic. They are worse than junk food. You might as well give your kids, go to the dollar store and give them dollar store freaking candy instead of spending the money on Flintstone vitamins. They're completely horrific for you. Most vitamins across the board. Most vitamins that you buy in a pharmacy, that you buy in mainstream drugstores, etc., oh yeah, are complete and utter crap. They have an absorption layer of like, 9%. Yes, I've had several orange babies myself because all my kids loved carrots when they were little, and they all went through a phase where all they would eat would be the orange vegetables, and they'd all get a lovely tan for a couple of months. It happens. Vitamins by Nestle? Mercedes, you've got to be joking me. That's fucked. Coffee vitamins, that's right. All the vitamins I need I get in my frickin' fruit and vegetables. Yeah, but Philip, okay, this story. So Philip was just talking about the big story that's going around about black glass-like fibers in infant formula in Australia. This is not a new thing. This is not a new thing. I went on a complete and utter rage rant back in, what was it, when the huge melamine scandal happened in China. I guess it was that 2010 when they discovered all the melamine. It killed all the babies in China. There was like I think there were 40 babies that died from melamine poisoning because they found ground melamine up in the infant formula. And I went on a complete rage out with people because everyone was just freaking out against the Chinese, and how they wouldn't import certain stuff. So there was in New Zealand a little while later, there was they found fucking botulism in infant formula, and China banned it. It wouldn't import it anymore, and everyone had this complete freak out about China doing this. And I was like, are you kidding me? Listen, at least China, when the whole thing with the melamine and the infant formula happened, do you know what happened to the producers of the infant formula? Of the 6 executives of the company that was making the infant formula, 4 of them were executed by firing squad. And the 5th one was given a stay, but is serving like 30 years in prison. Something ridiculous like that. Like when the Chinese government found out what was going on, they went through and like wiped out and took the company apart, dismantled it, and like all the executives responsible were executed. In North America, this shit happens all the time in infant formula. They find botulism. They find what's the other one? Guys, help me. Everyone talks about botulism and anyways, they find some E. coli. E. coli and dry formula happens all the time. They have found rat shit in baby infant formula. Pieces of mice, bugs, like to the point of there is now the FDA has a parts per million that is acceptable of bugs to be in infant formula. That's how often it happens. They had to actually make some numbers up. Okay, so like this whole thing about the stuff and coming out of Australia about the infant formula and these black stuff that's being found in it, yeah, this is not new. This is so not new. Yeah, I know, Deb. I know. It's just the FDA has that for all foods in the U.S. The listed amounts will put you off eating. Yeah, it is. It's fucking scary. Fucking scary, I tell you. Yeah, my one aunt, while she was going through university, she was as a senior student going through university, worked one summer for one of the big tea companies in Canada, and another summer she worked for one of the big processed meat ones that does the hot dogs and bologna and shit like that. And she never ever drank tea or ate any processed meats ever again. After just one round of working at places like that. Hot dogs are lips and assholes. Yep. And hooves, lips and assholes. That's what we tell our kids. Yes. I can tell you, folks, we live in a lousy society. Robert, you are so fucking true. It's interesting. There's such a push going on right now for people who just are feeling so driven to return back to a natural way of living. And I mean that in kind of like in all aspects, not just natural food, like proper grow your own food, but natural in the way that you want to live. Natural as in what feels more organic to be true, organically true, let's say. And yeah, so you're right. They make it completely impossible to do that, and they're passing more and more laws. The U.S. and Australia and Canada are passing more and more fucking laws every day to try and make no collecting rainwater, no growing tomatoes in your front yard. I mean, I know someone personally who got charged for growing tomatoes in her front yard, and the city came in and pulled them out. This was in Canada. This wasn't even in the States. This was in Canada. And I went toe-to-toe, like when my son Logan was a baby. And I used all cloth diapers. And I had all the cloth diapers out on the clothesline. And I got told I couldn't hang clothes out to dry because it's an eyesore to have a clothesline And I literally looked at them and it was like, first of all, I didn't sign your contract. Second of all, yeah, not going to happen. You're going to have to really, really go out and going to find some kind of a law here that says that I'm not allowed to use a clothesline to dry clothes on. Anything, right? Anything to interfere with that. But there's a real push, and I'm talking to so many people right now who can feel this incredible drive to just walk away from it all and go back to what feels natural. I've been having conversations for the last week with different people talking about, again, I talked a little bit about it on Wednesday, about what it is, what my vision is, what I would like to try and create. I mean, I've always been about creating community. But it's not just, the awakened people. Like, there's a lot of people I've met. I've got a lovely little lady who has her little veggie truck and she parks it out here on the waterfront, on the seafront, every day. And some of the stuff is stuff that she buys off the market, but most of it's stuff that she's grown in her own farm. And we had multiple conversations about how important it is to grow your own food. She says, I can't imagine not growing my own food. She says, I've grown up where I've always grown my own food. And she says, like, I've deliberately, bought enough land to be able to grow enough food that I can then sell the food and support my family. But we have had these conversations about how, like how you plant different things and how important it is. And she talked about, she's got one neighbor who grows carrots and she can't be bothered growing carrots because carrots are really dirt cheap here. And for all the work that goes into it, it doesn't make sense to her. And she says she hates like getting the shovel out and having to do that kind of digging to dig them up. She doesn't do carrots and potatoes. But she's got a neighbor who does. So she switches off. She's got eggplants right now that are like all over the place. She's got massive amounts of eggplants and tomatoes. So she's trading eggplants and tomatoes to her neighbor for carrots and potatoes. And that's natural. Like it feels organically, and I don't mean organically in that fucking, as a natural food, but I mean, it feels like that's the way we should be doing things. And there are more and more people who are really coming to the same conclusion all at the same time right now and really feeling driven to walk away from all this fucking shit and start doing things in a community orientation, to start working with people, bring groups together, and whether it's growing stuff, whether it's raising livestock, whether it's, I literally was talking about, joking the other day, saying I wish I could buy like 4 or 5 distillers and I'd start selling distilled water here, because you can't fucking buy distilled water anywhere. And I know at least 6 people that I know who are looking for distilled water. Now, I was joking and saying, if I bought distillers and just had them running continuously and bottled it myself, I swear I'd be able to sell distilled water continuously 7 days a week. No problem. Not necessarily, Maury. Things are a little lax over here. This is gozo. I'd have to go get a permit for bottling, which would be a bitch. But still something that could be doable. Oh yeah, I always used to give my plants distilled water. We used to say the dehumidifier. Like, my mom would insist that when you have a dehumidifier running, she would only water certain plants with the water from the dehumidifier because the chemicals in the water were not good. My mom had a couple of ferns that were really, really touchy, and she would only insist to only the water from the dehumidifier. Yeah, but this is okay. So, Ellen, this is what you just said about the young people have lost their ability to look after themselves. And it's become like I said, it's become a generational thing. And I've talked about this for fucking a couple of years now and said, even to things of like, well, when I've talked about setting up the school through RTS Earth, the educational section is teaching people how to cook properly. There's so many people who have no clue how to actually cook a meal, a full meal, how to make something like bone broth, how to make bread, how to make mashed potatoes, right? And it becomes generational that if go away, mosquito, if your parents were the type of parents who were into instant processed food, especially in the 70s, right? Because it became all very, very trendy then in the 70s. Ooh, TV dinners and all that. If they didn't cook, then chances are you don't cook. And then chances are that you're not going to teach your children how to cook. But it goes beyond that. It goes to the point of like how to grow a garden. Fuck off. Seriously, I'm sorry. I'm getting like a freaking mosquito flying in front of my face. How do you grow a garden? People literally have no fucking clue. Like I've literally talked to people who thought like their concept of what it would be to grow a garden. You're like, really? Holy crap. That's not how you grow a garden. How do you do things like, how do you collect rainwater? How do you, all of these kind of things, right? And that's why I think it's so important that we get back to that, because it's becoming lost. There's all of these pieces that's becoming lost. And when we get to a point in society where everything is so automated, instant, and fake, we are losing younger generations, like completely losing younger generations who are, sorry, but helpless. No freaking clue how to support themselves, how to live and thrive without someone either handing it to them, i.e. instant food, instant gratification. This is one of the things, this is one of my drives. Anyways, that's one of my drives, is that we need to really bring this back. And that's the whole community aspect of it, of bringing the community back in. We had a really interesting conversation further again this morning. It was a long meandering conversation. And one of the things that Igor and Brianna were talking was the difference between East and West, in the fact that in the West, that dissolving of family bonds, that dissolving of community bonds has actually been going on for generations now. Like it started really in the 1930s and 40s and 50s, where we started seeing the chipping away of all of those things, where now it's like there is no community or very little of it. Family connections are very weak. People don't look after each other. They don't live in the same city anymore. They don't help each other out, et cetera, et cetera. And Igor and Brianna were talking about the fact of, like, in the East, in Russia and Romania, like this is something that is still alive and well, and it's starting to fall apart now with the introduction of capitalism into Russia. This type of stuff is starting to fall apart now. But right up until, 10, 15 years ago, there was still very much these tight-knit communities where the families stayed together, the families looked after each other, and that your extended family was there, and that then you had like your community, and you knew all the people in your community, and everyone kind of looked out for each other. And now it's to the point where it's a disaster. It's a complete disaster. I went to a Leleche League conference. Would have been 2003. And one of the speakers and she was actually an anthropologist, gave a speech on finding your tribe. And she talked about the destruction of the family union and the literal destruction of the bonds that bring people together and hold communities together, and how the modern mother it's almost doomed to failure. because as a modern mother, they're left, you've probably already got a job, and you're probably going to be forced to go back to that job as soon as possible. And basically you have a baby, and it's like, boom, you're at home with a brand new baby, and there's no one there to help. There's no one there to give you advice. There's no one there to help with laundry. There's no one there to help. And it is one of the downfalls that we see now. And there's so many things that I can look back on and go all the way back and say, go right back to these basic points.
And Danny, this will make it easier for them to actually really take over, because no one will care what the fuck's going on. Like, if there is a big giant Holocaust or something, like, they'll wake up at the end going, oh crap, we were duped into this. Like, we've lost our humanity.
If you don't know your neighbors,
right.
What do you care? How do you,
right.
If you don't know them, then you don't care if someone's sick. You don't even know. You don't even know until an ambulance shows up, and you know, and then you see, and then it's like, oh, geez, someone's ambulance over there. I wonder what happened. Okay, well, what's on TV? Because communities don't know each other anymore.
Like we just look at our neighbors and go, oh, we got new neighbors. The only time we worry about our neighbors if they're loud or if they're being belligerent or whatever,
Well, you know what's really interesting? And one of the most amazing experiences I had on this topic was the big blackout in Toronto in 2003. 2003?
Yep, we got affected as well here in Windsor. Like, I was watching...
Windsor, right out to Ottawa, right?
I was watching that big, what was it? Earth Day or something like that? One of those big concerts that they had there. I was watching it by my computer, and all of a sudden, I'm like, oh shit, what happened? Like, it was like for almost 3 days without power or something like that we ended up having. Yeah.
Well, this is the interesting thing that happened to us is when we moved into our house 2 months before my eldest daughter was born. And it was a fucking hot summer. Like, it was just a hot summer. So I wasn't spending a lot of time. If I was outside, it was in the early morning. I'd go and do gardening in the backyard at like 6 o'clock in the morning, or it was later in the evening when it would cool off. And we just never got to know our neighbors. And then the following spring in 2003 is when this blackout happened. And it was really, really interesting because all of a sudden, of course, people couldn't get money out of cash machines. So it wasn't even like you could go get some money out and go buy. There was a lot of people who were stuck. I mean, they had no money. And there was a group of neighbors, and we had our next door neighbors, and we had just kind of, like during the spring thaw type thing in Canada, right? The spring thaw, the neighbors come out again. We'd kind of been chatting over the back fence a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
And I had just done a huge grocery shopping 2 days before. So I bought a lot of meats.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a good storage of meats. But I hadn't gone out, I hadn't got milk or bread. Or I had very little milk and bread. And the next door neighbor hadn't gone grocery shopping, but her mom ran a bakery. And she had a shitload of bread, because she always had a shitload of bread. And she had just gone and picked up like 2 huge 4-liter bags of milk. So she gave me some milk, and then there was the neighbor 2 doors down had a garden in the back. And they had a bunch of vegetables that were, kind of coming up, a lot of greens, and it ended up being this small community of people from the neighborhood who kind of gravitated together. And we kind of just started eating together, because basically it was like some of us had this, some of us had that, and everyone was kind of just putting the food together. And it was like one of the guys had an extra propane tank for the barbecue, and we'd run out of propane. So he brought the propane over to our barbecue, and we had like chicken. So we barbecued up all the chicken for everyone, and someone else made a pile of salad out of their garden, and someone else brought over like frozen vegetables that they had that had to be used up because, you know, the power was gone. And over 3 days, we actually had this really nice little community all of a sudden kind of come together. And it was an amazing experience. The sad part of it is that, you know, the power comes back on. And our next door neighbors, by that point, we were best friends. And we were really, really close by that point. But everyone else just disappears away again. And like, you wave, hey, how's it going?
Everyone just go back to modern life. And
go back to modern life, and that was it.
Yeah, I think I would like to go back to that time, but I would keep the internet. That's the thing. I would keep the internet because
it doesn't mean that we give up technology.
Right.
That's not, when I talk about going back to an organic kind of natural, that doesn't mean about giving up technology. Technology has its place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be nice. Yeah. Well,
it would be nice, folks. It would be nice. Well, we've all got to set the aim, set our aim. That's what we want, and that's what we aim for. Anyways, guys, we're pretty much out of time now. It's pretty much the end of it. We've been kind of just meandering around for the last half hour anyways, just all this chit-chatting. Yeah, so I will see everybody on Wednesday for the UnFucker discussion. And, of course, next Sunday for Transpicuous Views. We never know what's going to come up between now and then, because I had a whole subject prepared to talk about for today. And then yesterday happened, and I don't even remember what I was going to talk about on Friday. I'd already decided what we were going to talk about. I don't even remember now. So there you go. Homework. Deb, I think our homework is going to be still the same thing. Manifest our fucking asses off. Put your aim on something. That's what I want to have happen. That's where I'm fucking going. And it's going to fucking happen. And aim high. I think the time for maybe we need to really start aiming high on what it is that we want to manifest. Really make that decision in your mind. Where do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you really want to see? And fucking release it to the universe. And let's pull in and see what we can all come up with. Okay, guys, that's it for me. I will talk to you all later. Good night.